And a very good evening to you. This is the news from the CYBC in Nicosia. I'm Nathan Morley with tonight's top stories. President Christofias said progress has been achieved on the issue of economy during today's meeting with the Turkish Cypriot leader Davis Eroglu in the context of UN-led direct negotiations to solve the Cyprus problem. Speaking after the meeting, President Christofias said the Greek Cypriot side had submitted its positions and proposals on key issues of governance and power sharing. He said that the issue of governance and power sharing will be further discussed during the next meeting with Eroglu. Speaking from the illegally occupied areas, Eroglu announced that next month's meeting in Geneva will kick off at 10 o'clock in the morning on January the 26th. UN Cyprus envoy Alexander Downer said that there is intense activity regarding the Cyprus talks. In statements to journalists after the conclusion of today's meeting between President Christofias and the Turkish Cypriot leader Davis Eroglu, Downer said that during the meeting further progress was achieved on the issue of the economy. He added that the leaders of the two communities also exchanged further opinions on the chapter of governance and power sharing. Answering journalists' questions, Downer said that the leaders can meet the expectations of the UN Secretary-General until their meeting in Geneva. He pointed out that since their successful meeting in New York on the 18th of November, the leaders have been making a big effort to make sure the work is well done and that convergences can be achieved on the core issues between now and January's meeting. The leaders will meet again on December the 21st and their representatives will be meeting again on Friday and Monday. Greek protesters clashed with police and set fire to cars in a hotel in central Athens today as tens of thousands marched against austerity measures aimed at pulling the country out of a debt crisis. Hours earlier, Parliament approved reforms and spending cuts that are a condition of a €110 billion EU IMF bailout offered to Greece in exchange for austerity measures. Flights were grounded, schools shut down and public transport was paralysed as public and private sector workers went on strike. Former Conservative Minister Kostis Hatzidakis was attacked outside the Greek Parliament by around 200 left-wingers. Ships remained docked at ports, hospitals were working on skeleton staff, and ministries shut down as civil servants and private sector workers stayed away. Major roads to the centre of Athens were jammed as motorists struggled to get to work. With journalists joining the strike, there was no news on television or radio. Workers were also due to rally against austerity measures in other countries, including Spain and Belgium, ahead of a summit of EU leaders in Brussels tomorrow and Friday. Over 4,000 passengers and some 26 flights to and from the island's airports were affected by Greece's 24-hour air controllers strike. Cyprus Airways, Olympic Airways and Aegean flights have been affected. Out of the 26 flights cancelled, 12 were departure flights, and all of the flights were affected were to and from Larnaca to Athens and Salonika. Discussions continued in Parliament today on the issue of next year's budget. The 2011 budget projects revenues close to €6 billion, with spending expected to hit €8.26 billion. The budget is expected to be passed by the votes of the coalition parties, Akel and Diko deputies, with the main opposition Disi and smaller parties taking a negative stance. Tomorrow we'll see the conclusion of this year's budget debate, which is being aired live on this channel and on our first radio channel. 2 out of the 3 fire brigade vehicles which have been stranded in a buffer zone minefield in the Nicosia district since last week have now been freed. According to a fire brigade spokesman, the 2 vehicles came out unscathed, adding that the 3rd vehicle should be freed in the next few days. The fire brigade unknowingly entered the minefield to put out a fire, but initial reports suggest neither the fire brigade or the United Nations were aware of the minefield's existence. Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi narrowly survived a no-confidence vote that left his centre-right governing Power party clinging to power and provoked the most violent protests seen in Rome for many years. The result left him unable to ensure the stability of his government at a time of major economic problems and a menacing Eurozone debt crisis. Talk of new elections will keep the focus on the public finances in Italy, which has one of the heaviest public debt burdens in the world, at an almost 120% of gross domestic product. Some of the most serious rioting Rome has seen in recent times broke out after the vote, with dozens injured and more than 40 people arrested. 27 asylum seekers have died and dozens may be missing after heavy waves smashed their timber boat onto rocks on Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean off Australia, sinking the boat and throwing people into stormy seas. A survivor told Australian police that there were some 70 to 80 people on board the vessel, which appeared to be Indonesian. Police say they believe most of the passengers were Iraqis. The Australian Deputy Prime Minister, Wayne Swan, said 27 bodies had been recovered and 41 rescued, but warned that the death toll could rise. And that's our news from the CYBC. Let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast, where overcast skies with intervals of sunny spells are on the agenda. Rain showers and isolated thunderstorms are forecast after lunchtime. Winds will be south to southwest, moderate to strong, force 4 to 5 over slight seas. Temperatures are expected to reach 21 degrees Celsius inland and in coastal regions, and 10 degrees Celsius up on the mountains. And that's our news from CYBC. From us all here, have a great evening. Good night.